All right, program build and execution chart. We are on Army Environmental Cleanup Strategy Plan 2005, and we're on 29. Program build execution chart. Army base realignment closure installation system secretary installation environment. The DASA Department Assistant Secretary of the Army Environmental Safety, Occupational Health, and then IH Industrial Hygiene. Assistant Chief of the Installation Management Base Realignment Act Closure ODPE of the Defense. For the ODEP would be the of the Environment Program, U.S. Base Realignment FSO, U.S. Army Technical Centers, and basically Alright, Army Access Installation Restoration Program. Army background. The Army has identified a total of 14 installations with the except for the operational need for the although the not covered the base realignment closure legislation. Army plans to dispose of those 14 installation property for the primary of the Army ammunition plan for the which for the Army funded cleanup of both the Defensive and Environmental Restoration Program. Compliance related with the cleanup program of the Army assigned responsibility to complete the necessary cleanup disposals are in 13 of the installations of the Army Base Realignment Closure Division that utilize the staff expertise to complete the transfer of the non-base realignment closure installation. U.S. Army Corps with engineers manages remaining excessive installation and of the Army ammunition plan. Several statutes, regulation, excessive installation cleanup program must be noted, but the Defense Environmental Restoration Program that's Title 10 U.S. Standard Code 2701-3, Comprehensive Responsive Compensation Liability Act, Recovery and Response Action, Executive Order 1258-0 and 13016, Department of Defense Directive 4715-7, the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program Guidance at Army Regulation 201. All right, investment progress. The Army used the engineering regulation as well as compliance funding for the cleanup of the excess for the installation through the fiscal year 2004. Army spent a total of $1.9 billion in excess for the installation under Army Defensive Environmental Restoration Program as established of the response in place, response complete, and $0.9 billion though fiscal year 2004. Army reached response in place, response complete with the 572 sites, excessive installation with 175 to remain to be addressed. The Army developed the Army Environmental Database Compliance Related Cleanup. The database recorded compliance related cleanup being populated with the database fall of 2004. Army Environmental Database compliance related cleanup requirements. Excess installation include lead asbestos abatement with the demolished debris removed with a hazard waste cleanup. Not eligible under the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program. Enabled the property transfer Army Tracks funds excessive installation through the Army Financial Reporting System using Management Decision Package and the Army expects to transfer the first 14 excess installations into 2006. Mission statement: Army Excess Installation Restoration Programs ensures your excessive installation programs. Mission of the Army Excess Installation Restoration Program to improve the cost-effective cleanup of the provide property of the safe transfer of the projected reuse and protect human health of the environment. Objective of the target success indicated for the Army Excess of the Installation Restoration Program. For objectives 1 through 9, the U.S. Army Environmental Center conducted the IRP, the Installation Restoration Program, Excess Installation Justice of the Active Installation-Based Realignment Closure Decision, conducts compliance-related cleanup. All excess installations give the same guidance for compliance-related cleanup except for the base realignment closure division. Also conduct some of the lead asbestos abatement executive activities and abutting the demolition, debris, and removal of excess activities excessive in installation would not be eligible environmental funding with the active regard or reserve installation. The objective of the target success indicators are formatted as follows. As objective is 10.10, 10.1, target of success for the 10.11, success indicator of the target. Make the excess installation property to environmental suitable for the transfer of the develop a contingency cogent plan of the Army property disposal plan to transfer of the property excess installation end of the first quarter 2006. Develop comprehensive strategic addressing proposed transfer cleanup and issue with no later than 6 months prior to the anticipated date of the transfer specified in Army property disposal plan. Complete required environmental site assessment of the Army American Society Testing Materials, Phase 1 and 2 for the activities of the Community Environmental Response Facility Act determination, all excess installation by the end of the year fiscal year 2007. 50% of the excess installation environmental site assessment complete by 2006. The local 100% of the installation environmental site assessment completed by the end of 2007. Work of the U.S. Army Environmental Center establishes by 2006 to maintain the database, track, and manage land use control created with the part of the restoration program response. The database was established contained at least one of the record of the decision document of the land use control by the end of fiscal year 2007. For each recommended recommended record of decision document decision land use control 6 months of the record of the record of decision document signatures. Reporting mechanisms, excess installation restoration. The Army and use of the Army Environmental Database Restoration program and the Army Environmental Database Restoration compliance cleanup related cleanup a database for the excess installation cleanup reporting. Army Environmental Database Restoration contains site level detail of the phase cleanup study for the design, construction, long-term management contained native sites being addressed for the Army Defensive Environmental Restoration Program. Addition with the compliance in the database contains costs relative to the risk, other information for each of the Army Environmental Database compliance could do cleanup. It contains site-level information for compliance-related cleanup of the property transfer requirements, development, and reporting. U.S. Army Environmental Center manages the Army Environmental Database installation, updating the data semi-annually. The Army Environmental Database Restoration Source, reporting with the knowledge base, corporate reporting system, restoration management information system used by the Office of Secretary of Defense, support the development of the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program annual report to Congress. The Army uses information Army Environmental Database to the support of the cleanup program planning with the implementation semi-annual management reviews. Alright, management review. The Army Base Realignment Closure Divisions directly manage the operation maintenance activity of the Army with the funds of the property provided with the caretaking activities for the 12th success of the installation. Corps Engineering execute the function of the Cornhusker Army Ammunition Plant. U.S. Army and Army Engineer Environmental Clean. The U.S. Army Environmental Center manages the engineer regulations A funds necessary to fund the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program related cleanup success of the installation for the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program related to the cleanup of the DoD established with the regular series for the semi-annual reviews of the Army report progress of the meeting objective of the target of the principal deputy under the Secretary of Defense installation environment is typical of senior review as the Army prepares the brief off the Secretary of Defense, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army for Environmental Safety, Occupation Health, the senior Army reviewer. These reviews include programs specifically issue that the Office of Secretary of Defense required of the Army. Specific objective of the targets addressed in the Army Environmental Cleanup Strategic Plan with the program manager for the Office of Defense Environmental Program. Office of the Director's Environmental Program staff participate with the management review, consider the outcome of the management review makes necessary adjustment for the continual improvement of the environmental cleanup strategy and strategic plan. Alright, Army installation of the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program build and execution chart. Army Secretary and Army Deputy Assistant of the Army Assistant Chief of the Installation Base Realignment Closure Office of the Restoration Office of the Director of the Environmental Program. And then that splits into U.S. Army Environmental Center and goes Base Realignment Closure, FSO, U.S. Army Center of the Health and Promotion Preventive Healing, U.S. Army Technical Center of Explosives, Supporting Garrison Installation Management Agency, IMA Installation Management Agency Regions, Excess Installation, U.S. Army Environmental Center, ASA, Assistant Secretary of the Acquisition of the Financial Management, Comptroller, Army Budget, U.S. Army Environmental Center, U.S. Army Corps Engineering. Alright, background. The Department of Defense is responsible for accomplishing environmental restoration and contamination and use caused by the Department of Defense devious debris safety have the property of the where under the jurisdiction Secretary of the Defense owned with and leased to the possessed the United States prior to October 7th, 1986. For the Office of Secretary of Defense is responsible for using the FUDs or the known as the Formerly Used Defense Site Program policy, budget, the guidance, developing, defining the budget, the reviewing of the program performance of the Army is executive the edge of the federally unused defense site program. The U.S. Army Corps Engineering is the program execution agent, day-to-day manager. Because the Department of Defense no longer owns or uses the formerly used defense site property, for the USA's district commander serves as each property installation commander for the executes environmental restoration project fulfilling associated responsibility. U.S. Army Corps Engineering Tradition categorized the project with the federal formerly used defense site property such as hazardous toxic radioactive waste project containing hazardous toxic waste containerized hazardous toxic radioactive waste, typically underground or above ground storage tanks, military munition response program projects. Building demolition debris removal projects. Potential responsible parties include third-party sites. Alright, programs divert formerly used defensive sites are projected as part of the Defensive Environmental Restoration Program described earlier. The Defensive Environmental Restoration Program Management Guide further describes the objective of the program only does not take it into supplement with the Department of Defense events for the Environmental Restoration Management Guidance for formerly used defensive site programs. Detailed instruction conduct for the program in the U.S. ACE Engineering Regulation 203-1 formerly used under defense site program policy. Hard investment progress. At the end of fiscal year 2004, there was 9,730 potential formerly used defense site property for the United States. As the territories have been entered for the formerly used defensive site inventory databases determining whether the property was eligible inclusion for formerly used defensive site program. Preliminary information was reviewed. 6,789 property for the eligible inclusion for formerly used defense site program requirements to respond to the actions of the 2,948 properties. The USH has 4,871 projects for the inventory to draft the required response actions of the day, complete with the 2,678 of those projects additional with the properties identified each year. USH obligated with $3.3 billion during the fiscal year of the 2004, but the annual funding has approached $250 million over the recent years, established $18.1 billion to complete with the program. Overall program funding has remained relatively stable. The recent past projected to remain stable until the funding of the military munitions response program implementation increase for the targets of the space on the state funding, and then it shows your summary. Mission statement of the formerly used defense site program: clean up of the mission of the formerly used defense site program, employ with a risk management approach for the perform appropriate cost effective cleanup contaminated covered by the Department of Defense of the project, human health, safety, environment, objective of the target success indicator of the formerly used defense site program, objective of the target success indicator of the formatted as follows: 1. Objective of 1-1, targets of the objective 1-1-1, successors indicated for the target. Ensure prompt action to address the imminent and substantial threats for the human health, the safety, environment, to protect the workers, the public, and environmental hazards for this identified long-term accidents result of the environmental hazard for the report through safety command channel within line with the U.S. ACE and establish incident frequency rates. Appropriate notification made to the command regulators of the public in accordance with the established plan. As environmental risk for the address for the route for the interim response action is appropriate. Conduct appropriate, cost-effective effort to identify and evaluate what is necessary to protect the public's health, over the human health, the environment, conduct with the response action, address the contamination resulting with the Department of Defense activities, maintain relevant cleanup information, permanent document repository, develop an existing execution strategy for the have the remedy in play for the remedy response complete with the installation restoration program category through this document of the installation response program for the hazard toxic radioactive waste and the contained hazard toxic radioactive waste projects unless the otherwise noted portion of the fund formerly used the defensive site programs of the fiscal year 2020. And the installation and restoration program projects projected to miss the 2020 target identified at the end of each program year. The installation and restoration program projects are projected to miss 2020 year target review evaluated management alternate during the mid-year and the progress review using information current prior to the end of the year data meet the 2020 defensive goal of the remedial place remedy in place, or B, response complete with the installation restoration program project. Response in place and response complete achieve 50% of the highly respective of the installation restoration program projects by the end of 2006. Restoration in place and restoration complete 60% of the installation response program in 2007. The restoration in place response complete 100% of the installation restoration end of 2011. The restoration complete 6% of the medium relative to the risk installation restoration program end of 2007. 11. Restoration in place, restoration complete with 85% of the program restoration plans, non-priority list properties, end of 2014, completing one property per year beginning in 2006. 100% of all the installation restoration program projects, restoration in place, restoration complete, end of 2006. 2020. Achieve the restoration in place, restoration complete with 2,145 out of 2,678 total restoration projects at the end of the year of 2007. 2,066 in restoration projects, restoration in place, restoration complete 2006. 2,145 restoration projects, restoration complete with the 2007. 2,678 restoration projects, restoration complete by the 2020. Alright, meet a actual versus plan active at the quarterly basis project of the DASA, which is the Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army and the Environmental Safety Occupation have the proof of the defense of the federal formerly used defense site annual work plan. 90% of the greater plan actual meets green, 80 to 89% yellow, less than 80% red. Achieve response in place and response complete with 90 additional formerly used defense site property for the end of the fiscal year 2007. The base on the end of the fiscal year of 2005 property the response in place, response complete statistics. 50% of the additional 50 additional formerly unused defense site property for the replacement response in place, response complete by the end of fiscal year 2006. 4 additional formerly used defense site property for the response in place, response complete in 2007. Alright, continue to make progress again for the contain hazard toxic radioactive waste project programming. They have 60% program funding each for the year of the POM program. POM is program objective of the memorandum. Years contain hazard toxic radioactive waste project should be contributed with the response in place, response complete targets. Completing with the progress of the BD. Building demolition, debris removal projects programming up to 3% project funding of each of the year of the program. The POM or program objective memorandum. The building debris demolition and debris removal should contribute to the response in place, response complete targets. Establish annual work plan targets of the quarterly milestone achieve project with the response in place, response complete. 9% are graded plan number to achieve at the base for the established quarterly milestones. Green 80 to 89% yellow, less than 80% is red. Alright, continue refinement of the military munitions response program, funding allocations of the fiscal year 2005 through the program operation memorandum plan to meet the Office of Secretary of Defense goal, completing the SI by 2010, obligating $25 million to fiscal year 2006, $25 million 2007 towards the SI site inspection completion goal. 10% of the site inspection complete with the 2006, 30% of the site inspection complete 2007. All site inspection for the military munition response plan complete with the fiscal year 2010. Continue to execute formally used defense sites improvement information improvement plan to complete with the federal formally used defense and system site information improvement program by end of fiscal year 2009. Proper document respiratory cleaning information 9,730 formally used defense site property for the eligibility cleanup information can be retrieved with the data format. 5,500 property for the task 1 complete for 2006. 7,300 property for the task 1 complete 2007. Land use controls are part of the document repository for each of the project, ensuring that the management procedure with accountability are identified in place after the brief forecasting, ascertaining milestones toward reaching the response in place, response complete. Headquartered U.S. Army and Courts Engineer, Program Manager, procedural place include periodic review of the MCS. Your major subordinate command formerly unused defense site program manager, district program manager for the identified and resolve the issue with the AMP of the progress. District commanders accountable for the success or board for the identifying acts effectively resolving issues, coordinating, reaching, response in place, response, complete targets. The organization or individual identified accountable to be for the performance appraisal, other means, forecasting and attaining the milestones toward reaching, response in place, response complete for each project. Comply with the statute, regulation, executive orders over the other external requirements governing cleanup. This is in the Office of Secretary of Defense. Development of the Military Munition Response Program, prioritization protocol, rulemaking, developing plan to display potential consequences of the new Department of Defense Military Munition Response Plan, prioritization manual, or the formerly used defense sites lieu of the existing of the RAC. Your risk assessment code, priority process, priority setting model consistent with the formerly used defense site investment profile response, stakeholder concern, priority setting model provides logical approach of the application of the formerly used defense site universal projects. Anticipate immediate action complete with the compliance with the new revised enforcement requirements. No fines and penalties. Use of the U.S. Army Corps Engineering Mission Focus International Standards Organization 14001 Environmental Management System. Continually upgraded performance of formerly used defense system cleanup program. Cleanup consideration include the USA's environmental management system. Implementation district formerly used defense site cleanup activities as appropriate. Identify potential program impacts of including funding of the requirement to delay with the meeting and establish goal of the chemicals and emerging concern with an indicator with the hyperchlorite inclusion of the Office of Secretary of Defense of the PPPP, which is Planning Program Budgeting Execution System Process, and the DAIMM EDC Army Cleanup Office. Notified there 3 months of identified potential impacts. Army regulation policy guidance to develop the framework with environmental cleanup strategy. Recommended changes are required in Army Regulation 201, Engineering Regulation 203-1. Formerly used defense site program policies are required. Establish business program existing requirements demonstrating updates and changing with engineering regulation will occur. Publish Engineering Regulation 203-1. Formerly used defense sites program policies within 100 days of the promulgation of U.S. Secretary of Defense Environmental Restoration Program Management Guidance. Develop specific performance metrics to describe the formerly used defense site program management approach to accomplishing cleanup, developing an annual program management plan. Specific measures establishing an annual submission of the PMP, your program management plan. Program management plan of the Army Environmental Office. NLT 15 September each year. Plan program budget execution cleanup according to the Department of Defense Army directive with guidance validated adjustable project level. Execute the annual defensive environmental restoration appropriation for formerly used defense sites to meet the Department of Defense obligation expenses and objectives. Obligation targets in quarter 28%, 55% of the 80%, 100% as recorded defensive financial accounting system. Expense targets of 5 years as is 2267, 89, 95, 100% of the recorded defensive financial accounting system. Include a cleanup program, long-term course of action in a property-specific management action plan. Annual each of the projects include the statewide management action plan. All projects of the RD or response. Remedial action and remedial design and action underway. Each state of the management action plan includes exit strategy for each of the property plan. Project for the remedial design and remedial action underway with executing exit strategy. Are given the formerly used defense site cleanup extent of the second half of the 21st century, one of the military munition response program, respond with the considered with the headquarters of the Department of Army, and identified additional funding with the order to meet the Department of Defense for the FMR financial management regulation goal to defend for the controller requirements of the concern with the supplemental program budgeting documents going with the program objective memorandum. Program data requirements in the Department of Defense Financial Management Regulation. Instruction exhibit the formerly used defense sites as Management Information System is popularly vital with the meeting of the plan, program, budgeting, execution, reporting requirements, as well as determining proper allocation of resources. Achieve Federal Financial Management Improvement Act, compliant with the 2010 qualified audit option to end of 2007, unqualified option received the 2010 management information retaining single database record. Continuing is required to implement standardization process for the procedure for the introducing rigor over the responsibility, accountability for management of the formerly used defense site cleanups of the RACER, which is the remedial action cost engineering requirements estimate. Uses developing cost estimate where more of the accurate engineering cost estimates of the remedial investigation feasible study may not exist. Documentation support the cost estimate, future audit, response accountability, address the program, develop a cleanup partnership, appropriate federal, tribal, state, local, territorial authorities. Develop statewide managing action plans, respect for the state and environmental public agency, regional participation, promote, coordinate with the cooperation of some of the new plan per unit until completion, subject willingness of the states to participate. 43 plans completed with the end of 2006. 50 plans completed 2007. 55 plans completed 2008 were maintained. Information from the state that does not desire statewide management action plans. Existing plans used annually to include coordinate with the federal land managers, and for the states that do not participate, reconcile the inventory of the formerly used defense site property exists. Review state participation projected activity of the DSMO, which is your defense site memorandum of agreement, and is required by the state of the U.S. Army Senate Corps Engineering District, coordinated with each of the according six-step cooperative agreement. Involving the regulatory stakeholders, including federal land managers, annual property-specific management action plan to develop a revision process, regulatory stakeholders in the management action plan to develop, participate in environmental protection agency, state participating section, typically sponsored by the Department of Defense Regional Environmental Office in each environmental protection agency regional environmental office for the war with the formerly used defense site issues, assistance resolve the appropriately develop the process to reconcile U.S. Army Corps Engineering Environmental Protection Agency property the inventories approved on annual basis for the end of 2006. Reconcile the inventories approved by as provided with the Environmental Protection Agency ASTSMWO. No later than December 1st, the formerly used defense site PRP program restoration program inventory to the EPA Association of the State Territorial Solid Waste Management officials annually no later than through December 1st. Alright, 7th, promote, support public stakeholders' participation cleanup process as appropriate to make project level cleanup information publicly available. To update with the GIS, which is your Geographical Information System, and officially your cost complete information narratives to annually coincide with the release of the Defense Environmental Restoration Program annual report to Congress, and typically no later than April 15th. Update of the Executive Management System for regulators annually no later than 15th of April. The formerly used defense site properties include an annual work plan, but no RAB, or should I say Restoration Advisory Board, currently exists. For the survey, the Community Interest Established Advisory Restoration Advisory Board every 2 years with the Military Munition Response Program. Projects initiated interest determined every 2 years, and scheduled interest solicited in 3 months of installation of military munition response projects. As required by the Comprehensive Emergency Response Compensation Compensation Liability Act, the National Contingency Plan, and the National Defensive Environmental Restoration Program Management Guidance, maintain a repository of the IRP Installation Response Restoration Program. Cleanup information is available to public administrative record. The information repository available to single government action for the non-priority list property for the administrative record information repository. Single government location comprehensive information repository available to public location off of the property. Your RAB is your Restoration Advisory Board members of the management. A management action plan, develop revisions as appropriate. Public safety stakeholders involved with the management action plan developed and especially one of the specific project concern that has been addressed. Support for the development of the cost-effective cleanup approach to technology to improve the program efficiencies. Participate in ongoing U.S. for the Army Environmental Center. Consider consolidating post-remedy and place the activity regional base with include exit strategy and incentive with an early termination. All projects with the long-term management activity of the fiscal year 2006 for the RA. Your remedial action operations long-term management plan 2006 and 40 remedial action operation long-term management program 2007 consolidated brew 40%. Implementation of the performance-based contract with the initiative of the target of the obligation 50% of the total budget of the end of the 2010, 15% of the total budget option obligated by 2006 of the PBCs, which is your performance-based contracts, and 25% of the total budget in 2007 performance-based contract. Streamline-based management maximize the amount of funding going out to the actual remediation of the project sites. We're going to skip the apprentices. Program management costs do not exceed 14% of the engine regulation formerly used defense site programs. Program management costs does not exceed 13.5% of the engineering regulation funding formerly used defense site programs in 2007. Program management costs does not exceed 10% of the fiscal year 2011. Alright, identify initiative with the more efficient technology evaluate whether the program project applicability implementation as appropriate. 50% of the ongoing remedial action projects evaluate the application initiative with the more efficient technology program efficiencies by end of 2006. 60% ongoing remedial action projects evaluate the application initiative with more efficient technologies or program efficiencies by the end of 2007. And 843 discussing youth and innovation of the technology as part of each of the management review. Perform semi-annual or senior management reviews, cleanups, progress against the established targeted periodic review project where containing remains in place. Develop schedule for the mid-years here and senior management with an NLT no later target than 31st of the December each first year. Meet in accordance with the established schedule. Ensure operate appropriate program managers present. And success indicators identify strategic plans, part the semi-annual senior management review. Timelines developed and responsible for responding to tasks as long as the review is identified in deficiency. Required follow-ups are incorporated in the next scheduled review. Alright, and then we go back to reporting mechanisms. Alright, and that will cut the tape there. Alright, peace.